was my cry. At dark midnight was my cry. Give me Jesus. Give me Jesus. Give me Jesus. You can have all this world, but give me Jesus. In the morning when I rise, in the morning when I rise, in the morning when I rise, give me Jesus.
And good, bright, and beautiful morning. Thanks for joining me. My name is Kimberly Mann, and this is Easy Bible Study. And today we are in Genesis, and we are continuing the story of Joseph. So, Joseph, you know what they say. That's right. Grab your Bible and let's find out what the next little bit of Joseph is. He's already been dreaming a bit, but he doesn't really have dreams that are about to come true. There's some pretty awful things that are about to happen, but let's talk about them and see what we can learn from Joseph's life that we can use even in ours. So I'll be right back right after this.
You can have all this world, but give me Jesus. In the morning when I rise, in the morning when I rise, in the morning when I rise, give me Jesus.
And welcome back. As you can see, we are in Genesis chapter 37 today. But if you do find any value in this content, do me a favor, click like, subscribe, turn on that notification bell so you don't miss any of my content going forward. And I am just kind of checking things today a little bit because I've been off for a few weeks. Had a couple of weeks of vacation, but that kind of got interrupted a bit by my husband having some accidents. It's been a rough year to be my husband, apparently, because Russ had a couple of had a stroke in May, and now he's had a couple of accidents completely unrelated to the stroke. Somebody pulled out in front of him, blew through a stop sign, and another person sideswiped him. So, anyway, the point is. Crazy. So it's been a little bit crazy here, but we are back and we are back on track. So if you do find value in the content, click subscribe, turn on the notification bell. I do apologize to those of you who I kind of started in a little last week and then life got overwhelming again. So, but we are making sure that we are on track for this week. So this should be good. Anyway, I do look forward to seeing you here, and I do look at all my comments. Sometimes it is every couple of days right now with all the insurance stuff and all the busyness that it is about going back to school and this time of year that just happens. So be patient, but I do respond to all the comments that are placed on this channel. So I look forward to seeing you, and let us get into Genesis chapter 37. And we are in verse 12. And his brethren went to feed their father's flock in Shechem. And Israel said to Joseph, do not thy brethren feed the flock in Shechem? Come, and I will send thee unto them. And he said to him, here am I. And he said, go, I pray thee, see whether it be well with thy brethren, and well with the flocks, and bring me word again. So he sent him out of the vale of Hebron, and he came to Shechem. And a certain man found him, and behold, he was wandering in the field. And the man asked him, saying, what seekest thou? And he said, I seek my brethren. Tell me, I pray thee, where they feed their flocks. And the man said, they are departed hence, for I heard them say, let us go to Dothan. And Joseph went after his brother and found them in Dothan. And when they saw him afar off, even before he came near unto him, they conspired against him to slay him. And they said one to another, behold, this dreamer cometh. Come now, therefore, let us slay him and cast him into some pit, and we will say, some evil beast hath devoured him, and we shall see what will become of his dreams. And Reuben heard it, and he delivered him out of their hands, and said, let us not kill him. And Reuben said unto them, shed no blood, but cast him into this pit that is in the wilderness, and lay no hand upon him, that he might rid him out of their hands, to deliver him to his father again. And it came to pass, when Joseph was come unto his brethren, that they stripped Joseph out of his coat of many colors that was on him. And they took him and cast him into a pit, and the pit was empty, and there was no water in it for him. And they sat down to eat bread, and they lifted up their eyes and looked, and behold, a company of Ishmaelites came from Gilead with their camels, bearing spicery and balm and myrrh, going to carry it down to Egypt. And Judah said unto his brethren, what profit is it if we slay our brother and conceal his blood? Come and let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him, for he is our brother and our flesh. And his brethren were content. Then there passed by Midianites merchantmen, and they drew and lifted up Joseph out of the pit, and sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver, and they brought Joseph into Egypt. And Reuben returned unto the pit, and behold, Joseph was not in the pit, and he rent his clothes. And he returned unto his brother and said, the child is not, and I, whither shall I go? And they took Joseph's coat, and killed a kid of the goats, and dipped the coat in the blood. And they sent the coat of many colors, and they brought it to their father, and said, this have we found, know now whether it be thy son's coat or no. And he knew it, and said, it is my son's coat. An evil beast hath devoured him. Joseph is without doubt rent in pieces. And Jacob rent his clothes, and put sackcloth upon his loins, and mourned for his son many days. And all his sons and all his daughters rose up to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. And he said, for I will go down into the grave unto my son mourning. Thus his father wept for him. And the Midianites sold him into Egypt unto Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh's and captain of the guard. All right, so let's take a look at this. And let's see here. Let me see here. Yep. So one of the things that I wanted to go over here today, oops, we can turn that off as well, is that we want to look at this passage in a little bit different way. So Joseph here is, okay, so we are in Genesis chapter 37. So if you are taking notes, obviously if you are a Patreon, you can take regular notes outside of this. Let's see, we'll go there. We are in Genesis 37, and we are on verses 12 through the end of the chapter, which is 36. So the first thing we need to see here is verses 12 through, let's see, well, 12 through 15. And the first thing we see is that Jacob instructs Joseph to go check up on his brothers. So the first thing we're seeing is, okay, Jacob's like, all right, I got to go get these guys have to be checked up on because I don't entirely trust them. And that's kind of understandable because they're not really trustworthy guys. In fact, if we look at the map that we have here, you can see, let me see if I can throw this up so you can see it. Yeah, I think you can see it here. You can see that he sends them to Shechem, which is right. Let me see if I can zoom in on this a little bit. Let's see if we can zoom this in so that you can see it even closer. And let's pull this in. Whoops. Let's pull that in. And see if that helps. So you can see that this is where Jacob is Jacob is in Mamre or Hebron. Okay, that's where Jacob and Joseph are. And Jacob's like, hey, I need you to go check on your brothers. They've been out feeding the flocks and grazing the sheep in this area. I need you to go check on them for a little bit more. So please, Joseph, please go and take a look at them. All right. So, which is fine. That's exactly what he wants him to do. He wants him to go there. So let's take a look at that one more time. We'll put that up. And when Joseph gets up there, he finds out that they are not in Shechem. In fact, they're not in Shechem at all. They are actually further along. So what happens here? So verses 12 through 15 in our notes, we're going to say, so Jacob sends Joseph to check on the brothers in Shechem. Which is interesting because that means that, let's see here. I keep shutting that off because that is kind of part of my thing. All right. Shechech. Just make sure we spell that right. Chem. What this tells us is a couple of things. First of all, it tells us that Jacob did not trust the sons. He didn't trust them to do what he wanted them to do, which was go up to Shechem and take care of these sheep and take care of these goats. So Joseph gets up there, and in verse 15, he comes across, and a certain man found him, and behold, he was wandering in the field, because Joseph's like all over in Shechem going, where the heck are my brothers? Like, I don't know, where are you? Ollie, oxen free. And he's just kind of wandering around going, I don't even know how to look for them because there's like no trace of them. Where are they? And so this guy finds him. So in verse 15, so it's actually 12 through 14. So in verse 15 through 17, he is wandering around, and a guy finds him. And lets him know his brothers went to Dothan. Now, this is kind of important to understand because let's take a look at that map one more time. You can see that Dothan is quite a ways from Shechem. And it's not like Hebron's really close either. So the question is, why are the brothers up in Dothan? Like, what are they up to up there? Because obviously there was a field there. There was still food for them. So why were they up in Dothan? Well, we don't know. Maybe there were some women there. Maybe there was something there they wanted to go at. But it's clear that they are not doing what their dad wants them to do. Okay, so it is very clear. So he goes, all right. So this guy tells them they've gone up to Dothan. And so he goes up to Dothan as well. And here's the thing. So he found them, and he found them in Dothan. And then when they saw him afar off. So in verse 18, when the brothers see him coming and they notice him. Why do they notice him? Probably because he has this coat of many colors and he's pretty obvious. He's this flamboyant, colorful guy. They get it. They know where he is. They know who he is. They see him very clearly. So when the brothers see him coming and decide to kill him. That's the plan. The plan is we are going to kill Joseph. We are sick and tired of this kid. If you remember in the last section last week, we went over the fact that Joseph was a bit of a dreamer, but he's not actually dreaming. These are dreams that God gave him. They are prophetic dreams. They are dreams of a purpose. But those dreams of purpose show his brothers and his father and mother all bowing down to him. Even Jacob's a little disturbed by that. Like, come on, Joseph, you're my favorite. I love you. You're awesome. But it's a bit much. The idea that me, your moms, and like all your siblings, that they're going to bow down. Like, come on, Joseph. That's a little bit too much. Don't get too big for your britches. Don't get too. And Joseph's like, I'm not being too big for them. This is the actual dreams. I'm just telling you the dreams that God has given me. I don't know what they're about, but this is what God's telling me. And the brothers are like, forget this. I know a way to put an end to these dreams. Let's kill him. And so, but what's interesting is that, and they even came up with the lie that they were going to tell their dad. They're like, and we know what we're going to tell dad. We're going to kill him. We're going to tell him that an evil beast came across, that some beast attacked him and killed him. And oh, dad, we're so sorry. This is awful. This is terrible. Reuben, however, and this is what interesting. Reuben says, oh, no, wait, we don't want to shed blood. So in verses 18 through 20, they see him coming and decide to kill him and make a plan. Like, they've got a whole plan on how to do this. So when people so if you have seen the play Joseph's Technicolor, The Amazing Technicolor, Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat by Andrew Lloyd Webber, the brothers seem a little bit like playful and harmless, and yeah, they look like they don't want him or whatever, but they actually are really seriously wanting to kill him. This is not a kind of sort of maybe. No, they are serious. And all of them are serious. Now, Benjamin would have still been at home with dad and mom because he was way too young. But Reuben's the only one who sticks up for Joseph. Reuben's not even his direct brother, because Benjamin's his direct brother. And Reuben, let's see here. Let's see where we talk about, let's see which one Reuben was. Because we're going to the record of his family. All right, let's see here. And Reuben is the oldest. So Reuben is the oldest of them. He's like, whoa, hold on. I thought Reuben was the oldest, but I just want to double check. If you go back to Genesis 29, it says in verse 32, and Leah conceived and bare a son, and she called his name Reuben. She said, surely the Lord hath looked upon my affliction, and now therefore my husband will love me. And his name is Reuben. And if you remember, we went through that as well when we did that. So go back and watch that video if you haven't seen it. But Reuben sticks up for him and says, no. So in verse 21 and 22, Reuben talks them out of killing him. And he's like, let's just teach him a lesson instead. Let's throw him in his pit and make him miserable. We won't actually kill him, but we'll make his life miserable for a bit here. We're going to make him feel awful. We'll teach him a lesson about these dreams. And he's trying to talk the brothers down. I actually don't think that Reuben had as much of an issue with Joseph as the other brothers did, but he knew there was no way he was going to talk them out of completely doing nothing to Joseph. So he kind of talked them down to just doing this. Just throw him in a pit. Let's just throw him in a pit. So shed no blood, but cast him into this pit that is in the wilderness. And it came to pass when Joseph was come unto his brethren, they stripped him out of his coat. So that's what they did. So verse 23, they took his coat, which is kind of like taking his badge of honor. It's like a huge disrespect to take his coat. So his coat of many colors that was on him, and they took him and cast him into the pit. They took his coat and put him in the pit. Now, keep in mind that to go from Hebron to Shechem, and then from Shechem to Dothan, we're not talking about this is all happening on the same day. I mean, look at the distance here. Whoops, let's take a look at this. Look at the distance here. I mean, that is miles and miles and miles. We're talking about like 20, 30 miles here at least. I mean, Beersheba is where, Hebron is north of Jerusalem, but still up to, I don't even know what the distance is. Maybe we should look at that. Let's Google that really quickly. How far was Shechem from Hebron? The distance between Hebron and Shechem is 50 miles. Okay. And how far is Shechem from Dothan? 15. So basically he's going 65 miles. This is not a one-day journey that Joseph is on. Joseph is on this pretty long journey here from Dothan, from Hebron. First of all, to get up to Shechem is 50 miles, and then another 15. So 65 miles. He's walked another 15 miles. The 15 miles may have only taken him a day or a day and a half to do. But remember, it's really hot there. It is the Middle East. I mean, we're not moving really fast. He's probably on camels, but he's obviously not got anybody else with him. He doesn't have any servants, which is unusual that he wouldn't have any servants with him or any accompaniment or, be riding on a camel or something. So here he is. He's walked 65 miles to find his brothers, finally finds them, and they grab him, they strip off his coat, and they throw him in a pit. Ugh, that's not cool. And they sat down to eat bread, and they lifted up their eyes and looked, and behold, a company. So that's verse 23, and then verse 20 through 24, and then 25, they sit down to eat. And along came. Now, here's where some of the confusion comes in, because it keeps going back and forth between using the word Ishmaelites and Midianites. And it's almost like they're interchangeable. And let's talk about why that is. So keep in mind, though, Ishmaelites or Midianites have the same same great grandfather that these guys do. Okay? Ishmaelites and Midianites were both descendants from Abraham. And of the 12 tribes, so you got Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And then Jacob's son. So Abraham is the great grandfather of all of these sons. So we're only talking about 3 generations away. So if I look back at my great grandfather, because these sons are probably about my age, because Joseph is 17, and it took a long time for Joseph to be born. So Joseph is 17, or was 17 when he got the coat. It might be a couple years later when this incident happens. We don't know for sure. But what we do know is that he's 17, but his brothers are probably as much as 20 years older than him. And so it's a possibility that they are at least 13, 14, 15 years older than him. So they're in their mid-30s. So I'm in my mid-50s, so let's take that back a bit. And my great-grandparents were born in the 1800s. And I actually still know some of my cousins. So essentially, these Midianites and Ishmaelites, these were cousins. They were distant cousins, but they were cousins of these guys. So they're like, hey, cuz, that's what this is. Oh, I see you Midianites. So who are the Midianites? So who are the Ishmaelites? Well, first of all, if you remember, Ishmael was the illegitimate son of Abraham through the handmaiden that Sarah gave to Abraham. Well, then after Sarah died, Abraham married Keturah, and Keturah was the mother of Midian, and that's where the Midianites came from. So Keturah was Abraham's second official wife. And so Hagar, Ishmael's mother, was Abraham's unofficial wife, shall we say, because she was a concubine or a handmaiden that Sarah gave to him to have sex with and to propagate children, if you remember that story. So the Ishmaelites and the Midianites are both descendant from Abraham, 2 different mothers. All right. Keturah is a different mother than Ishmael's mother, Hagar. So Keturah and Hagar are the mothers of Ishmael and Midian, and their descendants are the Ishmaelites, Midianites, very much similar. They're very much within the same genre. And these are like second and third cousins, or second cousins once removed or things like that. These are people that they know. What's really interesting about this, though, is that it seems a little bit odd that the Ishmaelites are all the way up there, except for that it appears that the Ishmaelites traveled from way down. And here's the reason we say this. All right, let's take a look at our map again. Because the Ishmaelites, we're going to put the map up here, and let's do some zooming out so that you can see what I'm talking about. So if we zoom out of this, let's show you where let's see if we go back to that and that. Ishmael actually Ishmael settled way down here. You see where the map legend is down there? There and further south is where Ishmael and his family actually settled. So way down here where this map legend is, let's see if I can pull this up again. So I can zoom in a little bit and get way down there and still have it show for you guys. Let's see. Let's see if that helps. So way down here, 40, 80, like, 40 kilometers or 40 miles is what that means. Way down here and below that is Yemen, and that's where the Ishmaelites settled technically. But the Ishmaelites and the Midianites, it appears, were merchants, which is why they were way up in Dothan, because they had a tendency to travel in circles all the way up and down. And remember, the Ishmaelites had a lot of connections in Egypt for two reasons. One, Hagar, Ishmael's mother, was an Egyptian. Two, Ishmael's wife was an Egyptian. Hagar went and got Ishmael, her son, a wife out of Egypt. So if you remember that, it makes sense that they are traveling this great big circle and going down into Egypt and then going down into Yemen. So they're following the Nile River down into Yemen and then going all the way back up to probably as very far north as well as they could go. So they probably kept making these very big nomadic circles for some of them who were the merchants. And so that's what they were. They sat down to eat, and along came these Midianites or Ishmaelites. And they came from Gilead, which is way up north. Like that's even more, like that's north and west, or east rather, of this. So they came from Gilead, it says, with their camels bearing spicery and balm and myrrh. So they were bringing all these things, and they were planning to go down into Egypt. That's their plan. They're going to travel on down into Egypt and sell off all these spices. Keep in mind that the Egyptians used a lot of myrrh in their death sequences. Myrrh is a very strong substance, and they used it for their embalming and their mummifications and things like that. So big market for myrrh in Egypt. So that's where they're going. And so Judah said unto his brother, what profit is it if we slay our brother and conceal his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him, for he is our brother and our flesh. And his brethren were content. So now it's kind of hard to say, because now in verse 26, we don't know where Reuben is. Reuben's gone off somewhere. We don't even know. Maybe he went off to actually take care of the sheep and the flocks. Who knows? All we know is Reuben's not there. They sat down to eat, and Reuben took off because he thought Joseph was safe in the pit. And Reuben isn't there. And Judah says, hey, I have an idea. It's no good to us if we kill him. Well, Reuben had kind of already said we're not going to kill him, or we shouldn't. He's like, don't do us any good, but you know what does do us good? If we sell him into slavery. Yeah, that's what it's. Keep in mind, he doesn't have his coat of many colors. The Ishmaelites and Midianites, while they are cousins, they don't know all of Jacob's family because they've kept kind of separate. Just says, hey, I have an idea. Let's sell him and make some money. It's a great idea. So that's 26. And so they did 20 pieces of silver. Now, keep in mind, there are 10 of them. If you include Reuben, there's 10 of them, because Joseph was number 11 and Benjamin was number 12, but Benjamin's still a child. He's not there at all. So there's 10 brothers, 20 pieces of silver. Hello. Perfect. So verses 26 through 28. So make some money. They get 2 pieces of silver each. 20 total. That's not really that much money. Let's see what it was worth. Let's see here. How much is the current value of 20 pieces of silver Let's see what it says. So Joseph was sold for 20 pieces of silver. The weight of one silver piece in Jesus' day was approximately 3.9 grams. The current silver price is approximately 1.23. Let's see here. So total weight, 20 times 3.9 grams, blah, 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 78 grams. The current value of the silver was approximately $100. $100. Maybe 200. If it was really good silver, maybe 200. Please. 20 pieces of silver, $200. That's what they sold their brother for? Current value is $20 or $200. That's insane. So approximately $200. That's the best guess that it's got up here. It says, what were 20 pieces of silver worth? Potentially only around $20 to $30 is what some of them say. So it's, honestly, it just depends. How old was Joseph? Nope, we already know that. So yeah. I remember Judas sold Jesus into slavery, into the Romans for 30 pieces of silver. Joseph is sold for 20. So a little bit of imagery there of Christ being sold and Joseph, because Joseph was an image of Christ. So he sold for that. And when he returned, Joseph wasn't in when Reuben returns in verse 29, Reuben's upset. And he's like, what am I supposed to do now? He's like, Reuben asks, what are we supposed to do? What am I going to tell Dad now? Reuben says, what am I supposed to tell Dad now? What's going to happen? And they go, that's all right. We'll stick to the original plan. And they go and they kill a goat, put the blood all over the coat, tear the coat into pieces. Thinking, that's right. That's what we're going to do. Tear the coat into pieces. So they take the coat. They tear the coat. Put goat's blood on it. And lie to Jacob. And that's in verse 31 through 33. Verse 34, Jacob mourns his son. And that goes on pretty much to the end. Till verse 34 to 35. Jacob says, I'm going to mourn my son till the day I die. This will never set well with me. I'm going to hate this. It's going to be awful. My son is dead, and I'm going to feel that way till I die. And what do the Midianites or the Ishmaelites do with him? They sell him. The Midianites / Ishmaelites sell him in Egypt to Potiphar. Now, keep in mind, Potiphar is like a captain of the guards, an officer of Pharaoh's, and a captain of the guard. He's a pretty high up ranking guy. And Joseph is an educated person. Like, Jacob didn't not teach him anything. He's smart. Obviously, he's sitting back and helping his dad with the business while the brothers are out having to tend the sheep and do all of that stuff. So Joseph is smart. He knows stuff. And so he gets sold for probably a really good price. Doesn't tell us what he gets sold for, but he gets sold to Potiphar. And Potiphar is a captain of the guard of Pharaoh, of Egypt. So that means he's really high ranking. The captain of the guard in Pharaoh's court means that this guy was pretty much about fourth or fifth in line to the throne. Now, a captain of the guard probably would never have been in line for the throne, but maybe he's 10th or 12th. But the point is, he's definitely part of the Pharaoh's court, which means Joseph is now part of his household. That's pretty high ranking. That means something. So that's not the worst. If Joseph's going to be sold into slavery, this isn't the worst place to be sold. But wait, there's more. And we'll touch on that tomorrow. So what do we learn from this today? Well, what we can learn is that even though God can give us a dream for something, that dream isn't necessarily an immediate dream. So if God has put something in your heart, be prepared that he's going to do something he's going to do this dream. If he's really put this burning dream in your heart, he's going to fulfill that dream. But you may have to go through a lot of stuff before that happens. I once heard a phrase and a saying, if you ask God for patience, be prepared to suffer great trials, because that's how you build patience. If you want to be elevated and be a leader, be prepared to be humbled, because that's how God prepares good leaders. And that kind of looks like that's the way Joseph's going as well. God might be preparing him to do something great, but he certainly is humbling him. He's now in a foreign land where he doesn't speak the language, doesn't know who anybody is, and he's now a slave in Potiphar's household, and probably doesn't even know how to get back to Hebron. He's that far. Egypt is a pretty good, keep in mind, he had to be shown where Dothan was and where to go for that. So let's see. How far is Dothan from Egypt in the Bible? Several hundred miles. 250 to 300 miles is what is estimated. That's way too far for Joseph's completely out of he doesn't even know how to get back. And keep in mind, this is the captain of the guard. He's been sold into slavery. He runs away. He's going to get killed. So he doesn't. He says, all right, Lord, you've got me here. What are you going to teach me next? And that's part of what we can learn from Joseph is, all right, Lord, we're in this crappy time. I told you earlier, my husband has had 2 accidents in 2 weeks, under 2 weeks. And trust me, that's been pretty awful. We were without a second car for quite a while. And then the second car got damaged like 2 days after we got the new to us car. It wasn't even a new to us. Now, has God been working and doing some great things? Absolutely. Do I think that God's working this out for something amazing? Absolutely as well. However, this is going to be a little bit difficult. Joseph's headed for some not so easy stuff. However, tomorrow we are actually stepping aside from the story of Joseph for a little bit, because we're going back to the other brothers. We're going back to Judah and something that Judah did that wasn't so great. But that'll be chapter 38, and we'll be there tomorrow. And then we'll pick up Joseph again after that. So we have this little aside in the middle of Joseph's story. All right. Thanks for joining me. And if you do find any value in this content, please do me a favor. Go ahead and click like, subscribe, drop a comment below, and I would love to hear from you. So if you have any questions about Joseph so far, let me know. You can jump ahead, but let's not talk about it till we get there. All right. See you guys tomorrow. Bye for now.
I cry, give me Jesus, give me Jesus, give me Jesus. You can have all this world, but give me Jesus. In the morning when I rise, in the morning